Dre, I did want to ask you something, because yesterday we were talking a lot about Comcast Universal's incredible fourth quarter in regards to the theme.
Yeah, got numbers right here.
Right? I think Brian Roberts, the CEO of Comcast, was saying that was the best quarter for the theme park division, the best fourth quarter ever, I believe.
Yes, I think that's the quote.
Now, the reason I bring that up is because does that tie into this? Because if Disney's discounting, are they trying to compete because Universal, generally speaking, has been known to be more affordable than Disney. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes their pricing is comparable, but a lot of times when it comes to like hotels and things like that, they are a lot cheaper, a lot more affordable. Do you think this discounting across all Disney's park divisions is kind of a sign, kind of a response to how well Universal's doing right now, or do you think it's unrelated?
Well, dear God, I would hope so. That's been something I've been wanting for quite some time, but I don't think that's quite it. I think it's more about market volatility, and I mean, look at the stock market right now, and some of the estimates.
Gas prices. I mean, gas prices. Even if you're a local, like I live an hour from Disneyland. I'm a local, technically, but that's going to cost me an arm and a leg in California when gas is like over $4 a gallon.
Yep.
No,
you are absolutely right. I mean, look at Walt Disney World's own history back in the 1970s. Magic Kingdom opens October 1st, 1971. It was a relatively short time later, where you had the oil crisis. And that really, really hurt visitation for Walt Disney World, because people had to get there somehow. You either had to fly there, but the kind of the main way of transportation for guests across the East Coast at that time was by car. And when you can't get people there, that really did hurt their business. So those kind of outside market forces, these things don't happen in a vacuum. And to just give you some numbers on what OG had referenced here with Comcast's Q4 2021 earnings report, it generated $1.9 billion in revenue. And like OG mentioned, Parks Division delivered its most profitable fourth quarter on record. Company says it's ramping up construction on Epic Universe. I mean, it's a significant thing. I think Disney, and we've talked about it before, I think Disney has benefited from the increase in demand.
Yeah.
And I think Universal has as well. I think with what's been going on the last couple of years, I think has really been a boon to this segment of entertainment. The question really becomes, from Disney's perspective, is it sustainable? Can we ride this out here and build on this success, or is it just a momentary thing? That's really the big question right now, and I think Disney's hedging their bets with some of these discountings.
And I think also too, Disney is going to have to beckon to the call even further, because now that Universal, on top of their quarterly earnings call with the announcement that during the year of 2025, Epic Universe is going to be open, and we all know when Universe sets a specific time, they are more so guaranteed to their word. They're not going to push back. They're not going to delay it. They're not going to reschedule it. That is the time that they will be open. So now that's going to put a little bell in Disney's ear to say, okay, well, this is Universal's deadline. So we have to now come up with something, maybe not for that particular deadline, but we have to then call back to something to say, okay, everybody and their grandmother is going to go to Universal for Epic Universe. So what are we going to have to offer? And it's like, well, but then again, too, when that opens in 2025, that's when Toronto opened. So,
well, I don't know. That's kind of soon, George. I don't know, man. That's kind of soon.
Yep. Yeah, it is kind of soon.
It'll be interesting to see how Walt Disney World responds to Epic Universe, because, and I was talking to Dre about this, where it's funny because I think the kind of the fallback kind of like opinion for a lot of fans is like, oh, well, Disney World should just build a fifth gate, just build another park, and that'll be your response to Epic Universe. And I got to disagree with that. I think every resort has a different situation. And I think Walt Disney World, you're already not physically, but I think growth potential fiscally, financially, they're kind of tapping themselves out a little bit. They're kind of hitting a ceiling because there's only so many days a person or a family can go on vacation. You already have 4 parks and 2 water parks and this, that, and the other. Eventually, you're going to start cannibalizing yourself with more parks. If you add a 5th park, you're going to get to the point where families are going to have to make that decision. Well, do we really need to go to Hollywood Studios? Why don't we skip Hollywood? We'll do the other ones in the new park, and then that's going to start to become kind of the situation here. I think Disney World needs to find a way to respond to Epic Universe without building another park. They got to find some real headline grabbing thing that's big and bold, like a Galaxy's Edge kind of level announcement that can sort of compete with that. And I don't know what it could be. I really don't, but they need
my analogy on what you just said, OG, is Universal Orlando needed another theme park to the same beck and call as Disneyland needs another gate. Because they fall into that category as they already have enough in their previous parks that they have now that can withhold to add on another park. Whereas with Walt Disney World, yeah, you have 4 parks, but if you actually kind of dissect into those parks, Animal Kingdom, you only have about 5 or 6 attractions, and then pretty much you're done. Universal, sort of kind of like what Disney California went through, is kind of going through an identity crisis right now because it doesn't really have an overall theme. It's still called a studios, but yet it's not a studio, so it's like, what is it going to take to then say, okay, well, let's add a 5th park onto that. And then we'll add 5 attractions onto that. And it's like, okay, so yeah, I agree with you. I think honestly, to answer back to what Universal is doing with Epic Universe, I would say do a major park expansion either in a couple of the parks or maybe all 4. Maybe do like one expansion. I mean, Epcot's already going through a facelift right now, so that'll pretty much be done, but I mean, like maybe another major expansion at the studios or I would say more so the studios and Animal Kingdom, I think would really need something more to kind of have a full day, sort of like how they do with Magic Kingdom.
The company experienced this back in, I want to say the late 90s with the opening of Animal Kingdom, right? So, Animal Kingdom opens, and when it does, they do notice that kind of that kind of attrition from the other parks, as that kind of cannibalization where people, they just didn't have more days in their vacation time, or it was just, hey, you know what, we usually stay 2 days at Epcot. Let's take one of those days and just apply it to Animal Kingdom kind of thing. So, knowing that history, I mean, this is why when Paul Presser actually became the head of Parks and Resorts, and Islands of Adventure was coming out of the ground, it was like, well, how are we going to respond? What are we going to do here? And it's just like, no, let's just see, what happens. And if it turns out to be successful, then we'll go with Beastly Kingdom or something else. And sure enough, when it opened, Universal's marketing team was completely shit the bed, so to speak. And we got, Universal Escape or something, and people didn't understand that it was actually another park. They just thought it was like an expansion, and it just didn't move the needle at all. And that just gave Paul Presser just what he needed, and say, well, there's really nothing to respond to. And I think that's what Disney's going to apply here. I think they're going to take a wait and see approach, especially where they're at now. I mean, they are kind of at this kind of vulnerable state here. I mean, we're talking, it wasn't too long ago where they incurred not just a once in a century pandemic, but also, they spent $70 billion on Fox. I mean, you're talking about a huge amount of CapEx that, there's not a lot left to go around.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people, they like to, like the current situation, they like to blame JPEG, but a lot of this stuff that we're feeling right now is really residual stuff, residual decisions that Bob Iger made, the problems in China that they're having with the Marvel movies and what have you.
Yep.
The
acquisitions,
the Fox, the Fox $70 billion thing that they closed like literally right before the pandy hit. Now, obviously, Bob Iger had no idea that there would be a once in 100-year pandy, but like all this stuff led to where we are today. I mean, these are decisions that Bob Iger made that now Bob Chapek has to kind of deal with.